All right, I want you to picture the surface of the Arctic Ocean in deep winter. You know, we aren't even talking about water anymore. It's just a solid white plain stretching way past the horizon in literally every direction. Think of it like frozen concrete, several stories thick, locked together for hundreds of miles. So let's dive into this. Picture a massive vessel. It's not slowing down, it's definitely not turning away. We're talking about a 30,000-ton mountain of steel aiming itself directly at ice that could literally hold the weight of an entire city. And somehow, wild as it sounds, it comes out the other side. And look, we aren't just talking about a thin sheet of morning frost here. No way. We are talking about surviving 10 solid feet of ice, over and over, day in and day out, for an entire winter.
So how does that actually happen, right? Does the ship just, I don't know, hit the ice harder than the ice can resist? Is the front of the ship some kind of giant, unstoppable blade? I really want you to question your assumptions here about how this massive steel hull manages to leave a totally clean channel of open black water behind it without completely tearing itself apart.
Section 1. The battering ram miss.
See, most people imagine an icebreaker as a battering ram, just charging forward and punching a hole through pure brute force. But actually hitting a 10-foot ice wall head-on, it's like throwing your bare fist at a brick wall. The ice barely notices, and, well, the ship loses, big time. Instead, a true icebreaker features a sloped, rounded bow. It angles backward and upward, kind of like the curved front of a sled. That shape right there, that is the entire trick.
Let's think about the core physics at play here. Imagine the difference between trying to punch through a dry cracker held by its edge versus laying that same cracker flat on a table and just pressing down on it. The edge totally resists you, right? But the flat surface snaps instantly. Well, ice behaves exactly the same way. It is tremendously strong against a sideways shove, but surprisingly weak against a downward press. Section 2, gravity, not brute force. The big takeaway here is that the icebreaker isn't punching the ice. It's physically lifting out of the water and sitting on it.
So let's walk through this braking rhythm, which happens at a really slow, steady pace of just a few miles per hour. Step 1. The ship climbs. Thousands of tons of that sloped bow slide right over the ice edge, just suspended in the air. Step 2. It presses. The ice simply cannot hold that weight, so gravity takes over. Step 3. Crack. Imagine dropping a fully loaded cement truck straight onto a frozen pond. That is the downward force here. A slab the size of a literal parking lot fractures and plunges underwater. And finally, step 4. The ship settles forward into the gap. Climb, press, crack, settle. Over and over.
Now, to maintain this relentless cycle, you need some serious power. A large nuclear icebreaker can put out more than 70,000 horsepower. That's the combined output of roughly 500 ordinary cars. But remember, these monster engines aren't there for punching. No, they're just there to keep shoving that heavy, sloped bow up onto the next unbroken sheet. And all that power, it gets funneled into these enormous propellers turning beneath the ice. Now, these are made of thick cast steel, but chunks of ice still inevitably chip and crack them. Because of this, the blades are actually designed to be unbolted and replaced one at a time. Super clever. But these propellers do a vital second job too. Their wash blasts the broken ice backward and away from the stern. That flushes the channel clear so it doesn't just, instantly freeze shut again right behind the ship. Section 3. Defeating thick pressure ridges. Because sometimes the steady rhythm just isn't enough. See, when two ice sheets collide and buckle into massive piles called pressure ridges, the playbook gets pretty extreme. The ship stops, and it actually goes backward. It reverses into the channel it just cleared, gets a running start, and slams into the ridge to ride as far up onto it as possible. They call this backing and ramming. And it's just wild to think about. The strongest ships on Earth defeat the hardest ice by repeatedly retreating. And the logic gets even more upside down from there. These icebreakers are intentionally built wider than the cargo ships they escort just to ensure a safe lane. Plus, some modern icebreakers are literally designed to break ice while traveling backward, using a specially shaped stern, because in certain conditions, reversing actually clears a better path. Section 4. Secrets of the hull. Let's uncover the hidden engineering. Now, you might be wondering how the hull survives all of this lifting, dropping, and ramming without being shredded to pieces. Well, the survival engineering here is absolutely incredible, and it was earned through 100 years of older vessels getting stuck, crushed, and completely redesigned. First off, the steel plating at the waterline is several inches thick. Imagine multiple car hoods stacked together into one solid wall. Behind that is a double-walled inner hull, so even if the outside tears, the ocean stays out. But they also have to fight friction, so get this. They blow compressed air bubbles or shoot water jets below the waterline. This turns the entire hull into a giant wet bar of soap, allowing the ice to just slip right off. And if the ship does start to get stuck, they use internal tanks to rapidly pump water from one side of the ship to the other. They literally shake and wobble a 30,000-ton vessel back and forth just to break it free. How cool is that? But honestly, perhaps the most vital secret is its shape. If an icebreaker with a standard flat hull gets trapped, the pressure of the ice squeezing from both sides would just crush it inward. But by having a completely rounded underside with zero sharp lower edges, the pressure does something entirely different. It pushes the ship up. Just like squeezing a wet watermelon seed between your fingers, the vessel pops upward to safety rather than being slowly flattened. Section 5. Why icebreaking matters. It's a lot bigger than just the Arctic. We've looked at the incredible physics and engineering, but why go to all this trouble? Well, even if you've never actually seen an icebreaker, you've definitely benefited from one. Entire northern cities and remote settlements rely on them for winter fuel, food, and supplies. The icebreaker acts like a giant snowplow on a highway, carving a channel so supply ships can follow in single file. They keep frozen ports open year-round, they allow climate researchers to study the top of the world, and they escort tankers filled with natural gas and oil. Whole economies sit on top of this painfully slow, fuel-hungry work. In fact, the price of heating fuel in a northern town quietly includes the cost of the icebreaker that spent days grinding a path to deliver it. But there is a brutal, honest cost to this work, because it isn't guaranteed. A ship can become beset. That means being frozen in place when the surrounding ice closes in and locks the vessel solid. Wind and currents can push ice sheets together with immense pressure. And when that happens, a 30,000-ton machine, one of the most powerful things humans have ever floated, is held completely motionless by nothing but frozen water. Crews can be trapped like this for days, just waiting for the wind to shift, because at the end of the day, the ice always gets a vote. So, what's the major takeaway from our explainer today? Well, we started out picturing a battering ram relying on pure brute force against a frozen wall. But the reality is a much, much smarter machine. It refuses to fight the ice on the ice's strongest terms. It climbs instead of charges, lifting itself up so gravity can do the braking for free. As the saying goes, it truly isn't strength against the ice, it's geometry against the ice. But breaking ice from above is only half of the story. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to ponder. Imagine a machine facing the exact opposite physics problem. A submarine sitting in the pitch-black water beneath that exact same ice, needing to get to the surface. How in the world does a vessel punch up through 10 feet of solid ocean from underneath? Think about that for a bit.